Evelyn Hartwell had always believed that silence was something peaceful. Yet the silence that greeted her when the bus rolled into Bramblewick Hill felt nothing like tranquility. It was a hollow silence, the kind that lingered in the air long after sound should have returned. She stepped down onto the gravel road with her suitcase in hand and felt the stillness press against her skin. The village lay beneath a pale streak of late afternoon sunlight. Stone cottages leaned gently into the hillside, their chimneys exhaling thin curls of smoke. The little shops were closing one by one, their wooden signs swaying lightly in the breeze. Evelyn took a breath, tasting cold air mixed with the faint scent of pine. She made her way towards the small cottage that had been arranged for her by the school. Along the way, she noticed how quickly people disappeared indoors. Windows were closed with an almost urgent swiftness, curtains pulled shut as if to hide from something unseen. A mother hurried her child inside, whispering sharply before turning the key in the door. Evelyn paused in the middle of the narrow lane. She could not shake the feeling that the village was holding its breath. When she reached the cottage, she fumbled with the key and stepped into the cozy interior. Though the gentle yellow light and the crackling fireplace should have warmed her spirits, unease curled deep within her. The quiet felt unnatural, like a rehearsal for something she had not been told about. After settling her things, Evelyn walked to the school to familiarize herself with her workplace. The building stood near the edge of the village, overlooking distant hills wrapped in mist. Inside, she found rows of instruments, small chairs, and sheets of music scattered about. The air was warmer here, humming with a faint resonance from past lessons. It was there she met Iris Chapman, a small girl with dark curls and eyes that seemed too old for her age. She stood silently near the music room doorway, clutching a recorder to her chest. Evelyn smiled gently. "Hello there. Are you one of my pupils?" Iris nodded slowly, her gaze drifting towards the window. "You came on a quiet day, Miss Hartwell." Evelyn chuckled softly, trying to lighten the heavy atmosphere. "Is every day this quiet?" Iris hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Not like this. Today is one of the waiting days. Everyone goes home early on the waiting days." Evelyn frowned. "Waiting for what?" The girl opened her mouth to answer, but at that moment, the school caretaker, Mr. Alden, appeared down the hall. His tone was firm yet oddly strained. "Iris, your grandmother is looking for you. Off you go now." Iris hurried away, casting one last look at Evelyn before disappearing around the corner. That look was not childish curiosity. It was warning. As Evelyn stepped outside, the sun was sinking behind the hills, brushing the sky with streaks of amber. In the hush that followed, she heard it. A faint, wavering note carried through the wind, delicate as the echo of a memory. A single musical phrase, almost like a distant voice calling her name. Her breath caught in her throat. Because the melody, fragile and unmistakable, was the same one her late fiancé had played on the night he died. The note faded, swallowed by the growing quiet. Yet the stillness that followed felt charged, as if the entire village had heard it too, and was pretending it had not happened. The following morning arrived with a thin veil of fog that clung stubbornly to the rooftops. Evelyn stepped outside her cottage, tightening her scarf as the crisp air brushed her cheeks. Despite the chill, she felt a flicker of determination. She needed answers, or at the very least, a sense of normality in this strange village. Her first stop was the school office. She wanted to review the music curriculum, hoping work would distract her from the melody that had haunted her the night before. But the moment she walked into the corridor, she felt it again. The hush. Not silence, but a deliberate quietness, alive with tension. Mr. Alden was sorting through a drawer when he noticed her approach. "Morning, Miss Hartwell. Settling in well?" Evelyn gave a polite nod. "As well as one can, I suppose. The village is quieter than I expected." Mr. Alden paused. His expression tightened, but only for a heartbeat. "It is an old place. Old rhythms. People keep their own pace." He closed the drawer with a soft thud, as if signaling the end of the conversation. Evelyn sensed he would not say more, not willingly. After finishing her preparations, she began her first lesson. The children arrived in subdued clusters, their voices low. Iris Chapman sat in the front row, her recorder placed neatly on her lap. Evelyn tried to bring warmth into the room, teaching scales and simple melodies. For a brief while, the classroom felt almost ordinary. But during a quiet exercise, Evelyn noticed Iris staring out of the window again. "Iris, would you like to share something? Is everything all right?" The girl blinked and lowered her gaze. "Have you been up to the Whispering Rise, Miss Hartwell?" Evelyn shook her head. "No. Should I have?" Iris hesitated. "It is where the sound comes from. The one people do not talk about. The one that bothers them on the waiting days." Evelyn's heartbeat quickened. "The sound from last night?" Before Iris could answer, the door swung open and Mrs. Chapman entered, her steps sharp and hurried. "Iris, we need to leave now. There is a family matter." The girl looked torn between obedience and fear, but she gathered her things and followed her mother, casting another lingering glance at Evelyn. The door shut behind them with finality. When the school day ended, Evelyn felt an unshakable tug drawing her towards the hills. Curiosity wove itself around her like a persistent thread. She followed the narrow footpath beyond the last cottage, where the land sloped upwards into the quiet expanse of the Whispering Rise. The climb was gentle but unnerving. The fog thickened around her, carrying scents of wet earth and heather. Tall grasses brushed her legs, whispering faintly with the wind. Every so often she thought she heard something beneath the breeze. A tremor of sound. A fragile hum. By the time she reached the crest, the fog had grown dense enough to blur the distant view. Yet within that clouded stillness, Evelyn felt a sudden shift in the air, as if the hill itself had been waiting for her. Then she heard it. A long, trembling note. Soft but unmistakable. It drifted through the mist like a stray thread of music pulled from another world. She knew that tone. It was the same one that had slipped into the wind the previous evening. Her breath hitched. This time, the melody did not end with one note. Another followed, then another, forming the beginning of a song she knew all too well. The song her fiancé had composed but never finished. Evelyn stepped forward, searching the mist for any sign of movement. "Hello? Is someone there?" The only reply was the lengthening melody. It swirled around her like a memory returning to life. And then, as she strained to hear more, she felt a hand brush lightly against her shoulder. She spun around. But no one was there. The hilltop was empty. Yet the music continued. Evelyn stood frozen on the hilltop, her breath turning to mist in the cold air. The melody lingered, curling through the fog like a living thread. Her heart pounded as she stared into the empty haze where she was certain someone had touched her shoulder. Then, as abruptly as it began, the music ceased. Silence rushed in, heavy and absolute. The kind of silence that felt as though the world had paused. Evelyn swallowed hard and took a cautious step back. She told herself it must have been the wind, or her imagination, or the strange acoustics of the hill. Anything but the impossible. But the truth settled inside her like ice. She had felt a hand. And she had heard a song that should have died with him. A sudden crunch of footsteps made her tense. Someone was climbing the hill. She turned sharply, her pulse quickening as a figure emerged from the fog. At first, she saw only a dark outline, tall and steady. Then the mist parted just enough to reveal a man in a long coat, his expression unreadable beneath the shadow of his hat. "You should not be up here alone, Miss Hartwell." His voice was calm, yet something in it carried a faint urgency. Evelyn stepped back instinctively. "Who are you?" He paused only a few feet away. "Lucas Trenham, constable for Bramblewick Hill." His gaze swept the foggy crest behind her. "This is not a safe place on days like this." Evelyn steadied her voice, though fear lingered at the back of her throat. "What happens on these days?" Lucas hesitated, as though weighing his words. "People hear things up here. Sounds that do not belong to this hill, or to any place meant for the living." The cold deepened around them. Evelyn tried to laugh it off. "That sounds like superstition." His eyes fixed on hers, serious and unblinking. "Superstition comes from somewhere. And the Whispering Rise has a long memory." He gestured for her to follow him down the hill. With no better option and an uneasy dread building within her, she walked beside him. As they descended, the fog thinned, revealing the village below, small and quiet beneath the dim sky. "You said people hear things," Evelyn pressed. "What did they hear before?" Lucas did not answer immediately. "Music. Voices. Footsteps. People lost things here. Not always objects." The vague reply unsettled her even more. When they reached the foot of the hill, Lucas stopped. "Miss Hartwell, I will give you one piece of advice. If the music ever calls you again, do not follow it. His words left a deep chill in her. Before she could respond, a soft rustling came from behind the trees. Both of them turned. A small figure stood there, half hidden between the trunks. It was Iris. Her face was pale, her recorder hanging loosely in her small hand. Miss Hartwell, she whispered, you went to the hill, did you not? Evelyn's heart dropped. Iris, what are you doing out here? The girl stepped forward, her voice trembling. They say the hill sings only for the ones it remembers. And I saw someone go after you. Someone who should not be here. Lucas stiffened. Who? Iris raised her hand and pointed to the slope behind them. Evelyn followed her gaze. A second figure stood at the top of the whispering rise. Still. Unmoving. Wrapped in the fog like a shadow cut from the mist. Her breath faltered. Because for one fleeting moment, the silhouette looked exactly like the man she had lost. But when she blinked, the figure was gone. Vanished into the fog. Eliza spent the rest of the afternoon replaying Henry Markham's words in her mind. If Brandon had indeed visited someone in Willowmere before disappearing, then whoever he visited must know far more than they had admitted. And yet the townsfolk seemed united in their refusal to talk. As dusk pulled its grey veil across the moor, Eliza lit the old lantern and climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. The air grew colder with each step, carrying the faint scent of dust and something else she could not quite place. A low hum, barely audible, seemed to tremble behind the timber walls. She pushed open the attic door. The room was exactly as Violet had described it. Boxes, trunks, and forgotten furniture sat in tired silence. But Eliza's eyes were drawn immediately to the far side, where a small window overlooked the lane. A thin, shimmering line traced the wooden floorboards beneath it, like a tear of light. She knelt and touched it. Warm. Eliza jerked back. A soft creak sounded from behind one of the larger trunks. Her lantern flickered, casting long shadows across the sloped ceiling. She stepped forward slowly, every instinct urging caution. Then she saw it. A notebook. Not tucked away or hidden, but placed deliberately on top of an old chest. Its leather cover was worn, the initials BH faintly pressed into the center. Brandon Hartridge. Her breath caught. She reached for the book, hesitating only once before opening it. The pages were filled with Brandon's neat handwriting. Notes. Sketches. Maps of the moor. And then, abruptly, a sentence that made her blood turn cold. I followed the woman in the black coat to the old kiln. She knew my name before I spoke it. Another page. She said the truth about Willowmere was not buried but waiting. Another. I am not alone in this house. Eliza's shoulders stiffened. She lifted the lantern higher and scanned the attic. Nothing moved, yet the stillness felt heavy, as if the room itself were holding its breath. A sudden gust struck the window, rattling its frame. The lantern's flame shivered. Eliza clutched the notebook, ready to leave. But as she turned towards the stairs, something else caught her eye. Along the back wall, partly concealed behind a dusty wardrobe, was a narrow wooden door. Its edges were darker than the surrounding timber, as though touched often. It did not appear in Violet's description of the house, nor did the attic's layout suggest it belonged there. Eliza approached it slowly. No keyhole. No handle. Yet the faint hum she had heard earlier radiated from behind it. She pressed her palm against the wood. The hum stopped. Silence swallowed the attic, thick and sudden. Eliza stepped back, heart pounding. She reached again for the door, desperate to understand why Brandon had been drawn here. Before she could touch it a second time, a whisper, soft, breathless, unmistakably human, drifted through the seams of the wood. Eliza. Her name. Spoken from the other side. The lantern dimmed. The attic seemed to tilt. Fear surged through her, cold as the moor's winter wind. And then came a second whisper. You should not have come back. Eliza stumbled backwards, nearly dropping the lantern. The shadows swelled, climbing the walls like smoke. Somewhere far below, she heard Mrs. Pritchard call her name. But Eliza could not move. Because the final whisper, the one that threaded itself into her bones, was spoken in a voice she knew. Brandon's. And he sounded afraid. Eliza did not sleep that night. The whispers from the attic clung to her thoughts like frost on a windowpane. Every time she closed her eyes, She saw Brandon's initials on the notebook and heard his voice. Fearful, urgent, impossibly close. By dawn, she had made her decision. She wrapped a scarf around her neck, tucked the notebook into her coat, and stepped outside. The air in Willowmere was colder that morning, as if the village itself braced for something unspoken. A pale mist crept along the edges of the cottages, settling over the narrow lanes like a second skin. Eliza headed towards Kestrel Rise, the steep lane that led to the old kiln Brandon had mentioned in his notes. The path wound between towering hedgerows, their branches clawing at the sky. She hesitated as she reached the clearing. The kiln stood there, a weathered stone structure, half swallowed by brambles and moss. And someone was already there. A woman, standing perfectly still beside the entrance. Her coat was black, long enough that its hem brushed the damp earth. Her hair, tucked beneath a dark scarf, was silver at the temples. She was facing the kiln, unmoving, as though listening to something deep within. Eliza froze. Every instinct told her to step back, but something stronger, curiosity or desperation, held her in place. The woman spoke suddenly, her voice drifting across the clearing without turning her head. "You are late." Eliza's breath caught in her throat. You know who I am?" At that, the woman slowly turned to face her. Her eyes were gray, almost translucent, like mist over water. "I know why you have come," she said. "But the answers you seek will not comfort you." Eliza swallowed, feeling the weight of the notebook against her ribs. "Did you speak to my brother?" "Brandon Hartridge." The woman tilted her head, studying Eliza with a strange unsettling calm. "He came here alone," she replied. "He asked questions no one else dared to ask. He was persistent, stubborn, and afraid of nothing. Except the truth he carried." Eliza stepped closer despite the cold that gripped her spine. "What truth?" A faint smile touched the woman's lips, though it held no warmth. "The truth about Willowmere. The truth about this house you insist on staying in. The truth he discovered too late." Eliza's pulse quickened. "What do you mean too late? What happened to him?" The woman lifted her hand, elegant, pale, and pointed towards the kiln's dark opening. "He crossed a threshold he did not understand." The mist thickened, curling between them like living breath. Eliza's heart thundered. "If you know what happened, you must tell me." "My brother is missing." The woman's expression shifted, a flicker of something that might have been pity or regret. "Missing," she repeated softly. "Not quite the word I would choose." A gust swept across the clearing, stirring the dead leaves at their feet. The trees groaned. "Eliza," the woman said, her voice lowering to a whisper, "you should leave, before the house finishes what it began." Eliza felt the world tilt beneath her. "The house," she echoed. "What does the house have to do with Brandon?" The woman stepped towards her, moving with a grace that was almost soundless. When she stopped only a breath away, Eliza saw the faintest tremor in her gray eyes. "Your brother was not alone in that attic," she murmured. "And neither were you." A chill bolted down Eliza's spine. "I heard him," she whispered. "I heard his voice." The woman nodded once. "He tried to warn you." "As he tried to warn me." Eliza's throat tightened. "You spoke to him?" "I did," the woman answered. "On the night he disappeared." Eliza's breath faltered. The clearing seemed to close in around her. "What did he say?" she forced out. The woman leaned slightly closer, just enough that her words brushed Eliza's ear like a cold wind. "He said the house would never let him leave." Eliza staggered back, her pulse racing. Before she could speak again, a branch snapped behind her. She whipped around. The clearing was empty. When she looked back, the woman in the black coat was gone. Vanished, without a sound, without a trace. Only the door of the kiln remained, yawning open like a mouth waiting to swallow whatever came next. Eliza returned to the house with the woman's words echoing inside her skull. The house would never let him leave. The sentence clung to her like cold rain, sinking deeper with every step she took along the fog-soaked lane. By the time she reached the front door of the old Hartridge house, dusk had begun to spill across Willowmere. Candle glow flickered through the windows of neighboring cottages, yet not a single curtain stirred in welcome. It was as though the entire village had withdrawn into itself, waiting. Waiting for what, she did not know. She hesitated before pushing the door open. The wooden frame groaned softly, as if aware of what she carried back with her. Fear, suspicion, and the lingering scent of the kiln's damp earth. Inside, the house was warmer than she expected. The fire she had lit earlier had burned low, casting a dim, unsteady glow across the sitting room. She set her coat on the chair and glanced up the staircase. The attic door was shut, as it should be. Yet the air around the banister felt colder, heavier. She could almost imagine it pulsing, as though the entire upper floor breathed in shallow, waiting rhythms. Eliza tightened her grip on the notebook. "Not tonight," she whispered to herself. "I am not going up there tonight." But the house had other intentions. A slow, deliberate creak sounded above her. She froze. Another followed. Then another. Soft. Measured. Unmistakable. Footsteps. Dragging footsteps. Her breath hitched as she stepped backward, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "No," she whispered. "No, no." The footsteps paused. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. It expanded through the house, filling the walls, settling into the cracks of the wooden floorboards. Then, a single thud. Right above her. Eliza stumbled to the side, gripping the back of a chair to steady herself. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Something shifted upstairs, followed by the faint sound of fabric brushing across the attic floor, a slow, scraping movement that made her skin crawl. With trembling hands, she opened Brandon's notebook. There must be something here, something he wrote, something he left behind. Her eyes skimmed frantic pages until she found a line scribbled in the margin, the handwriting uneven, as though written in haste. "The attic reacts to sound." Below it, another note. "Do not call out. Do not answer." Eliza snapped the notebook shut, pulse hammering in her throat. A soft breath drifted down the staircase. At first she thought it was the wind slipping through a crack in the old window frames. But the sound grew heavier, wetter, almost human. A whisper unfurled through the shadows. "Eliza!" Her entire body locked. The voice was identical to Brandon's. The softness, the cadence, the every syllable ache she knew by heart. For a moment her mind reached for hope, for the impossible. But the woman in the black coat had warned her. He was not alone in that attic. And neither were you. Eliza swallowed hard, stepping away from the staircase. "That's not him," she whispered. "That is not him." Another whisper floated down. "Please, come upstairs." This time, the voice trembled. It sounded wounded, desperate, just like her brother. No, she told herself fiercely. If she answered, if she stepped closer, she would be breaking the one rule Brandon had left her. Do not call out. Do not answer. But the voice came again, barely audible, soaked in sorrow. "Eliza, I'm cold." Tears pricked her eyes. Her knees felt weak. That was his voice. She would swear it was his voice. She clapped her hands over her ears, shaking her head, but the words seeped through her fingers, threading into the air around her. "Eliza, please." The stairs creaked. A shadow shifted at the top step. Her breath shattered. She backed away slowly, inch by inch, until her spine touched the wall. Her vision blurred. Then something happened that made her blood turn to ice. A new sound. Not a whisper. A laugh. Low. Breathless. Wrong. The shadow at the top of the stairs rocked slightly, as if swaying. Eliza's mouth went dry. And then, 3 soft knocks echoed from inside the attic. Knock. 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 Followed by Brandon's voice, hollow and distant. "Don't let it out." The staircase fell silent. Eliza stood trembling, the house breathing around her, the darkness watching. And upstairs, something waited. Eliza could not sleep. The attic's whispers haunted her through the night, weaving shadows into the corners of her room. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the staircase, the shadow, and Brandon's voice calling her name. By the first light of dawn, she had made a decision. She would confront the attic, no matter what. She wrapped herself in a heavy cloak, tucked the notebook under her arm, and stepped out into the fog-heavy morning. The house seemed alive. Each step along the creaking floorboards sounded exaggerated, echoing into the empty halls. The air was thick, almost tactile, and every breath felt laden with weight. She climbed the staircase slowly, her hand brushing the railing, the shadows shifting under her touch. Reaching the attic door, she paused. A faint shimmer in the wood caught her eye, like the surface of water disturbed by a drop. Her hand rested against the door, and the whispers began again. Eliza! This time louder. Insistent. A thread of fear ran through the voice, but also something else. Pleading. Her hand shook as she opened the door. Inside, the attic was darker than she remembered, the light from the outside struggling to reach the corners. Dust swirled in thin shafts of morning sun. Then she saw it. A large mirror leaned against the far wall. Not the kind one simply glances into, but an old, heavy-framed mirror, its surface slightly rippled, catching the light in unnatural ways. And in its reflection, she did not see herself at first. She saw Brandon, standing behind her, pale and silent, his eyes wide with terror. Eliza! She spun around. Empty air. No brother. Only the notebook, still clutched to her chest. The mirror's surface rippled again, and the reflection changed. Now, it showed the attic as it must have been years ago. Dust-free, well-kept, and with Brandon standing in the center, staring straight at her. He lifted his hand, as if to reach through the glass. The whispers intensified. Do not let it out, they urged. Eliza's heart hammered. She took a tentative step closer, curiosity stronger than fear. Then the mirror changed again. It was no longer the attic. It was the kiln, mist curling around Brandon's form. His eyes begged her silently. A sudden sharp sound, like the breaking of glass, made her flinch. She looked down. The notebook had fallen open, pages flipping rapidly on their own. Words appeared she had not seen before. The house keeps its own. The mirror hides them. Do not speak. Do not move. Her breath hitched. The attic seemed to shiver around her, dust particles rising in patterns as though alive. A cold hand brushed her shoulder. She spun. No one. The mirror's surface now reflected her fully. Alone. And yet, behind her, the faintest shadow of Brandon lingered, growing clearer with each heartbeat. Eliza! The attic seemed to pulse in response, each whisper, each shadow, tightening its grip on her senses. She knew that whatever waited in the mirror was tied to the house's hunger. And she also knew, if she did not uncover the truth soon, it might never let her leave either. Eliza did not hesitate. The notebook in her arms felt heavier than ever, as though it carried Brandon's fear with it. She stepped closer to the mirror, her reflection quivering like water, the shadow of Brandon lingering just behind her. She whispered his name. Instantly, the air shifted. The attic seemed to stretch taller, darker, alive. The mirror rippled, and suddenly, she was no longer alone. Brandon appeared, not in the reflection but in the room itself, his eyes wide, his face pale, trembling. Eliza! He breathed. Tears ran down her cheeks as she took a step toward him. Brandon, what happened? Who did this? He looked over his shoulder, fear etched deep. The house. It's not the house. It's her. The woman in the black coat. She guards it. She keeps them. And she wants to keep me too. Eliza's eyes darted to the corner. Shadows shifted. The air was icy now. Each breath visible. You mean the kiln, the attic, the mirror? Everything is connected? Brandon nodded. She lured me here years ago. Trapped me. I tried to leave, but the house reacts to the living. The mirror shows what she wants you to see. If you fall for it, you never leave. Eliza's mind raced. She looked down at the notebook, flipping to the page Brandon had marked with trembling hands. Do not speak. Do not answer. Then a sound. Soft footsteps behind her. She whirled. Nothing. Just the shadows stretching, reaching. Eliza, Brandon whispered, gripping her arm. We must confront her together. Only together can we end it. A gust of wind slammed the attic window, rattling panes. The mirror vibrated. From its surface, a figure emerged, the woman in the black coat. Her eyes glimmered silver, unblinking, and a smile twisted her lips. You should not have come, she hissed. Now you both belong. Eliza's heart hammered. She held Brandon's hands tightly. We won't be trapped, she said. The woman laughed, a sound that echoed like shattered glass. Shadows surged from the mirror, curling around the siblings. The room shook. Dust fell. The wooden floor groaned under an unseen weight. Eliza remembered the notebook. She flipped to the final page Brandon had not read. The mirror fears light. Speak the truth aloud. Her voice trembled as she spoke. We will not be taken. We will not fear. We are not yours to claim. The mirror cracked. Light spilled from the fractures, illuminating the attic in blinding white. Shadows shrieked and fled. The woman in the black coat screamed, her form distorting, twisting, until she dissolved into a spray of silver mist. Brandon sank to his knees, shaking. Eliza embraced him, trembling too. The attic was silent. The mirror lay shattered, fragments glinting in the morning sun. The oppressive heaviness lifted. The shadows, the whispers, the fear, all gone. Brandon looked at her, his voice hoarse. You saved me. I thought I was lost forever. Eliza smiled, tears still streaming. No one is lost when they have someone to fight with. Outside, the morning was calm. The sun rose over Willowmere, casting warmth across the village. The house remained old, silent, but no longer alive in the way it had been. The siblings stepped into the fresh air, free at last from the shadows that had haunted their family for so long. For the first time in years, they felt the weight lift, the truth behind Willowmere revealed, and the darkness broken.